How is everyone doing today? So, video today is going to be, I don't know, from what I've what I've learned lately. It's kind of an important video, especially. I mean, I shouldn't say especially, specifically, if you are a fish bobber or a slip bobber, walleye connoisseur, much like myself. I'll tell you what. Roughly that third week of May, well, fourth week of May, all the way through June and most of July, I would say 95% of my walleyes come on a slip bobber and a leech. So a lot of people don't realize this, but there's a right and a wrong way to set a hook on a slip bobber. So first of all, got to have yourself a slip bobber rod, a nice long one. I prefer something 7 foot or bigger, or maybe nine and a half foot. And my specific setup here with this slip bobber rod is I have a bobber here. I normally use steel bobbers, but I could not get one at the bait store I was at last. But there is it's a Kalen, isn't this? Or is this a tail fin? I don't know. Just get yourself a good slip bobber with a brass flute down the end. I prefer a fill one myself. All my other bobber rods at home have a fill one. I'll probably set this one up at some point, but I have about 4 feet of 10-pound yellow seagar. So on my slip bobber, I got the slip bobber knot is above this, a bead, the bobber, and then another bead to a swivel. Now, this lower bead here prevents your swivel from going up inside this bobber on the bottom and getting stuck there, because so many times I see this, you don't use a bead or use a much larger swivel so it cannot go up inside there. A lot of people notice this swivel right here will slide up in there and you'll go to cast, and now all of a sudden you're like, my bobber's not going down because the swivel has now stuck up inside the slip bobber itself. Then on this 4 feet of 10-pound fluorocarbon, I'm going to get up here. You guys can see all this business. There's a 3/16 ounce tungsten worm weight with another bead, followed by a bobber stop, and then I have a size 4, just I think it's the nickel plated, whatever, Gamakatsu hook. And what this slip knot right here lets you do is, I probably have this maybe 11 inches or so, 10 to 12 inches, let's call it that, from this hook right here. Now what putting in here allows me to do is allows me to move this in super clear water. You guys, I've moved this thing like 18 to 20 inches away from the hook because the walleyes get spooked at that weight, and then that leech has more room to swim around, and that kind of natural. Or in super thick cabbage, you can move this down 5 inches from the hook, and it does not allow the leech to swim around, and get caught up in the cabbage. So that is my slip bobber setup. And then what I really like to, or what I prefer to use for leeches is, I don't like, some people are like, I need the biggest of the bigs. I don't like the biggest of the bigs, you guys. I like, just, this is probably a good size medium right there, a good size medium to a large. And I'll hook it right behind the sucker, or I believe it's also in actual leech lingo, it's called the hook. See how that leech is stretched out and hanging there? That's the profile it has in the water. So when you cast this leech back there, that leech is sitting there in the water just doing one of these numbers. So that's the first step in slip bobbering. Second step is locating fish. And now there's a school of walleyes behind the boat here, maybe 30 feet or so. They're not really big walleyes, but like to me, 14 to 16 inch fish is exactly what I want to eat. So now when you cast back there, boom, cast back there, your bobber's sitting there floating around all willy-nilly style. All of a sudden, bam, your bobber goes down. Oh my gosh, the excitement, right? Bobber goes down, the second it goes down, shabam, you set the hook. Well, usually one of 5 things happen. Your bobber's been floating around out there for 3 or 4 minutes, and now your bobber's down, and there's 38,000 feet of slack line laying back here behind the boat. So I see it happen to a lot of people. They'll just get excited and they'll set that hook, and all they do is they pick up all that slack line that's in the water, and that bobber moves a little tiny bit down there, and now the walleye spits it out. Okay, so that's one thing that happens. Or I see people cast out, that bobber will go down, you know, and you'll see it, it'll start to go down, and the second it's going down, they just set the hook like crazy. You know, just straight up in the air, set the hook, and you know, that can result in catches, but more or less not, you don't get as many catches. What I personally do, and like I said, I slip bobber a lot for walleyes. I will be watching that bobber, and that bobber goes down. I actually kind of, I don't know, I get in a stance. I see it, I go down, I will start reeling, and I'll give it 2 or 3 seconds, you know, for that bobber going. I'll start reeling, and that slack line will come out. This rod will load up. I will let this rod load up about 1/4 of the way before I set the hook. That way, when I set the hook on that fish, that is direct power from that hook into the fish's mouth. So it's not, you know, like I said, it's not me pulling, you know, and not having any intention on there, and, you know, not getting such a good hook set. When you're reeling, you want to make sure that you have flex on that rod, but you reel really, really fast into the hook set, and then fight your fish accordingly. So I'm going to attempt to try and get a walleye or two on video here for you. We'll see how this goes. Bobber's going down, nice slow reel into it. There we go. Set the hook. Oh, look at that, you guys. This is not what I was hoping for. Well, it is, but there you go. That is the key to catching giant late summer walleyes, just like this one. Whew, that's probably a 9-incher, maybe, give or take. Just a little guy. All right, I'm gonna try and get a bigger one here. Another spot down the lake. There's a bunch of fish back here, but they might all be smaller. I do see some bigger ones in there, but even on that fish, that was a small fish. I started reeling till that rod even bent from that little fish before I set the hook. And that, I mean, that's a big difference in catching fish and not catching fish, believe it or not. All right, you guys. So, made a little move here. There's some bigger fish sitting here behind the boat. How big? I don't know. But they're probably bigger than 9-inch long. Bobber to sink, reel into that hook. Rod's bending. There we go. There we go, boys. That feels like a good fish. So that bobber sank. I literally reeled into that hook, or reeled into that hook set. There's a nice walleye. That's one of the ones I'm talking about. Like I said, you've got to reel all that slack out, let that rod load up a little bit, and then set the hook, because that hook is going right into that fish 100%. All the transfer of power goes right into that hook set. There's a good eater right there, probably a 19-incher, if I had to just guess randomly. But there we go, right there. Proof is in the pudding, you guys. There's a nice walleye. We're going to see how long he is. We're probably going to keep him 19 1/4, just like that. Hocus pocus. We might even give that another try since we're sitting here. Bobber slowly sinking, reeling, rod loaded up, set the hook. Ooh. See how easy that is, you guys? Like I said, you don't want to just snap that rod all willy-nilly style. You want to reel into that hook set, you guys. And then when you reel into that hook set, you don't have to hammer it home. Like, because it's all transfer of power, especially if with a longer rod, you guys. Just such a fun way to catch fish. Feels like another good solid eating fish. Oh yeah, there he is. That's a nice walleye. Oof, that might be a little bit. Gosh, that's going to be borderline 20-incher. I'll bet. Probably. I mean, it's probably right in with the other one. Oh God! Don't get the hook in your hand now, Scotty. Scotty. All right, there we go, you guys. Another late summer slip bobber walleye. That's probably me right around 20 inches. Close to that, 19 and God. Right about 20 inches, 19 and 7/8. Got a friend that lets me do a bunch of trapping and stuff on his property. So we're gonna keep that fish too. Just want to get him a few walleyes to keep. Walleye number 2 on this setup, you guys. Like I said, this setup is so like foolproof. Yeah, it's working. All right, guys, bobber's sinking again. Gonna reel in. So reel in. There he is. Reel in. Load that rod up. Set the hook, and we're dancing. Another really nice walleye, you guys. Sure is nice. The sun is starting to go down a little bit. Water's calmed down, and I might add, you know, it's kind of, it sure helps to have calm water around you while you're doing all this slip bobber fishing. Walleyes do not like the bobber going up and down in front of their face 20,000 times. Yes, I'm putting my finger in his mouth here. Right there in the corner. There we go. And that one's going to be probably close to 20 inches as well. Let's see what we're working with here. 20 on the nose. So that's another one that's right on 20. We're going to let that guy go. There we go. First one was a dink. Last three have been really nice. Definitely can't complain about that. Bobber just sank. There he is. Gosh, that actually loaded up for me, you guys. Is that another? Oh, it is another walleye. Gosh, that one sank and ran like a wild banshee. So I didn't really have to worry too much about reeling the slack up, but that's going to be a just under. That'll be a good eater. That'll be a good eater, you guys. Right there, look at that. That's probably a 17-incher. Got my pliers right here. There we go. Shaboozy right there. 17. Oh gosh, 17 and a quarter. Sorry about that, buddy. 17 and a quarter going in the box. Let's see here. 4 in the box. Oh, that one, you guys, that one was aggressive. Normally, you know, you reel into them nice and slow. I reeled the slack up, and that fish was already on the back 40. You know what I'm saying? That fish is already on the back 40 and wasn't playing. All right, well, you guys, so I think we got 4 or 5 walleyes there. I think 4 of them were pretty nice. Got a dinky one. I did. Excuse me. I just want to come back on a few key features of my setup today. First of all, I'm going to tell you we're on a point, and not a big sharp point, just a big rounded point. We're sitting in about 13 feet of water, about 13 feet of water, so 13, 14 feet, right on the edge of the weeds. And what we're doing is we're scanning the inside weed edge here for open pockets, you know, and some standing cabbage, you know, not super thick weeds, but sparse stuff. And we came across a school of maybe like a dozen or so, 15 really nice sized marks. They were not like the first marks I seen, which were small, and I knew they were gonna be smaller walleyes, but like I said, eater size. These ones here turned out to be pretty nice fish, you guys, which I was really happy on. But anyway, back to my setup, my slip bobber setup. I showed you guys what it was. You guys might have your own. I just wanted to show you an adjustable setup that you guys could use any time of year, you know, in cabbage, in open water, clear water. It's just such a fantastic setup. And then my rod, I prefer a nice long rod. Actually, the longer the better, almost. You know, this is actually a 9.5 foot rod. I prefer a softer tip with some nice backbone to it, because when you reel into that walleye, softer tip is going to let that tip flex into the fish, and they're not going to they're not going to know what is going on until it's too late. So you reel into that fish, rod's, you know, loaded up, nice little hook set, didn't got to put a ton of pressure on it to get that hook to stick into that fish. So like I said, reel the slack out of your line. And I don't, like I said, even if you reel the slack out of your line and you see it's out of there, don't just snap your rod, reel into that fish, watch that rod load up, set the hook, and you should be good to go. Other key point I probably should touch on is the fact that, you know, I like when you're setting the hook on a slip bobber, set your rod, you know, set the hook up in the air, you know, so you're trying to drive that hook into the roof of the fish's mouth. I don't want to like setting it sideways, because there's a lot better chance of that hook coming straight out of the fish's mouth. Yeah, so anyway, leech bite was good day on a bobber is the end of August. Minnows are working, I will say that, because these fish are spitting up some minnows, and I have caught fish on minnows out here in recent weeks. So anyway, if you guys want to get out fish with me, hit me up on any of my social media pages. MaNiaC Guide Service, 330 MaNiaC Fishing on Instagram, 330 MaNiaC Outdoors on Facebook, or just call or text me, 218-849-5310. Trying to get some more videos up for you guys. Yeah, fall's right on the corner. Appreciate your support, and thanks for watching. Peace.